So Parshas Emor. Yeah. So it says, V'yomer Hashem Moshe. Hashem says Moshe, right? Pretty straightforward. Emor el Kohanim b'nei Aaron. Now this is a different. Right? Not only does Hashem tell Moshe to say, who does he tell him to say? Not just to the Jewish people. So he's telling him specifically to speak to the Kohanim, who are the children of Aaron. So that's the first question we have to have, is what does it mean, speak to the Kohanim, the children of Aaron? Are there any Kohanim who are not offspring of Aaron? They're all offspring of Aaron, so why tell us both? You can say, Hashem tells Moshe, speak to the Kohanim, that's enough, you know who that is, or speak to the children of Aaron, that's also the Kohanim. What's the difference? You should say to him, Lenefesh L'yitma b'yamav. And it says the standard, right, which is, we know is an important point, that no Kohen is supposed to become Tameh. That is, to have a lack of certain spiritual abilities, which come from coming into contact with something that itself is called Tameh. Anything from a dead body to a certain type of animals, or being in the same area as these things, they can all affect it. And then it goes on to speak about the Kohen and who a Kohen is allowed to become Tameh for. Right? He says that, if somebody dies, they're not supposed to go to a cemetery, but they can go to the cemetery for a family member, a mother, a father, a brother, right, a sister, and it lists the 7 family members that he's allowed to go for. And then it goes on. So let's look at the first thing, is it says that he has to speak to the Kohanim. So Rashi, for some reason, he finds this odd, where Hashem says, Moshe, say the following to the Kohanim. So Rashi comments right away. The first Rashi here, he says, Emor, what does it mean you should say? The Amarta, and you should speak, Lahazir Gedolim al Katanim. The older ones should warn or should inform the younger ones. What is he talking about? So here you have an important point, that the older Kohanim have a responsibility to educate the younger Kohanim. Because, for instance, let's say you have a Kohen. Today, you have a Kohen, right, and the child wants to play baseball. Right? But the baseball place, the baseball diamond, is next to a cemetery. Right? But, you have a park next to a cemetery. Most people, including the religious Jews, it makes no difference. You could go to a cemetery. Right? Of course, you don't want to deface the cemetery or use it inappropriately, but you can certainly go into it if the ball happens to go there. But a Kohen can't. So you can imagine the kid, let's say a 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid playing baseball, and he's playing baseball situation, the ball goes into the cemetery, he can't go get it. So he's going to say, why? What do I have to do that for? Right? What's the idea that I have to do? So the father should come and educate the kids the importance. And it's not, being a Kohen, it just doesn't mean you can't do this, you can't do that. It means you have certain privileges, and with privileges come responsibility. Right? A Kohen has certain privileges. He works in the Beis HaMikdash. He's given honor simply because he's a Kohen. And because of this, you have certain responsibility, and that is you can't become Tameh even today to the best of your ability, and certainly not with forethought. You can't do it purposely. So they have to be educated to that, which is one of the reasons why it says the next line, which is Emor el Kohanim b'nei Aaron. Remember, I raised the question, why do you have to say both Kohanim and b'nei Aaron? And here it's to tell you that why are you Kohanim? Not because of anything you did. This young 10-year-old kid is a Kohen, or his father, a 50-year-old man, is a Kohen. What is it that they did to become a Kohen? Nothing. They did nothing. They were born that way. Why? Because they're the children of Aaron. So this is telling you that a Kohen is a Kohen because he's born as one. And he can become a great Kohen, he can become a righteous Kohen, but by the bottom line is, a Kohen is given the respect of being a Kohen because he's born that way. And that's because of who Aaron was. Aaron was given this gift by Hashem because of what you did, how you lived your life and how you acted. Then your children will all be considered Kohanim, will be priests, every one of them. You don't, and therefore, it's not the priest today, the Kohen today, who does anything to become a Kohen. He's born that way. But it's a gift he got because of who his great-grandfather was, which was Aaron. And so it's telling you not only who a Kohen is, but that a Kohen needs to know that you are a Kohen because of Aaron. And then he has these rules of what he's allowed to and not allowed to do. as we mentioned before. Now, here it tells us right away, in beginning of verse 5, some of the things that Kohen can't do. All right, some of these things we can't do either. And here it says, you shall not make a bald spot on your head, and you should not shave an edge of your beard, and in your flesh you should not cut a gash. Why? Because they should be holy to God, and they shall not disgrace the name of God. Right? So here, why is this? Because these were symbols of ancient civilizations that they used to, like let's say, in anguish over a dead person. Loved one would die, they'd pull their hair out, right? And they'd inflict pain on themselves. It wasn't necessarily dangerous pain; it wouldn't kill them, but it would hurt them, in order to help them mourn. And we're not allowed to do that. Now, not only that, that's the first one, that's the bald spot. The second thing is shaving an edge around their beard or cutting their hair in certain ways. That was done as a sign of affiliation. I'm a part of this tribe, and this tribe cuts their hair this way, and this group cuts their hair that way, and this group does that. Right? Just like now, you even have it today. You see, it's very prominent with teenagers. Teenagers always want to be independent. They always want to be different, right? But it turns out is that they're all different, but they're all different in the same way. Now, I remember when I was a kid, my father says this to me. I go out, you want to wear jeans, you want to grow your hair long, you don't want to dress up in suits, right? That's what people did in the 70s when I was growing up. We didn't. We wanted to be counterculture. We wanted to be different than everyone else. So my father says to me, that's fine that you want to be different. You want to express your individuality, except you're all doing the same thing. You're all buying the same clothes, listening to the same music, so you're not really individual. You're just saying you're not the same as me. By his generation, then that's true. That idea of a person getting a haircut or wearing certain clothes in order to show an affiliation to a group is very common, and it goes back throughout history. And there are certain things that the non-Jewish tribes, especially the idol-worshipping tribes, used to do, and Hashem warns us you can't do those things. It goes so far in Jewish law that it says that if they wear blue shoelaces, you're not allowed to wear blue shoelaces. Even though it might be common to wear blue shoelaces, doesn't matter. If they wear it as a sign of their religion, we can't. For instance, we know, and you study Jewish law, when it came to praying, one of the ways Jews used to pray was with their hands together. They're like this. We used to pray. So why don't we do that anymore? Because the non-Jews do that. And because the non-Jews do it, we stopped doing it. Not because we didn't have to do that. It was just the way we did it. But as soon as they started doing it, it became a symbol for their religious beliefs. We stopped doing it. Right? We have a number of things like that because we need to show what we're different, and we need to identify. We have these things today. You want to ask a question, Julie?
About when did we stop doing this?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it was long before my time. No, we're talking back around the 1st century. Right? So we have these things even today, not just with teenagers, but for instance, you have lots of women wearing skirts, like young girls wearing skirts. Perhaps the older generation, they wear skirts because everyone wore skirts. You didn't back when I was a kid, women didn't wear pants. They just didn't. Not because they couldn't, they just didn't. They weren't pants. But today, right, we know that women in the Orthodox world, they don't wear pants usually. Now, so why is that? So there are laws about it, right? But there's certainly, you can understand that there's certain types of pants, and there are pants made for a woman and so forth, that perhaps you could say that maybe according to the letter of the law they could wear. So why is it that the young girls today don't do that? Because wearing a skirt has become more than just a part of the laws of Judaism. It's become a sign of recognition. It's become one of the symbols that you're affiliated with a certain group. Yeah?
Because in Torah it said that women not supposed to wear men's wear and men not supposed to wear women's wear.
Correct. But what if you would have a company that makes pants for women, specifically designed for women? So a letter of the law would probably, if they were baggy and they were made just for women, and it was understood throughout the world, which it is, that women do wear these, so then probably to the letter of the law, it would probably be, to some extent, acceptable. It's not done, and I think it's not done not only because of that, but also because wearing a skirt has become a symbol of in our world. It's a symbol. A woman, especially a young woman who wears a skirt all the time, is making a statement. Just like a man who has, what type of a yarmulke they wear. The fact that we wear a yarmulke, that's Jewish law. It was based on a custom. It became a law. Now that it's a law, can you wear a knitted yarmulke? Can you wear a black yarmulke? Could you wear, a pot holder? You could do all of these things. Right? But the reason that certain people wear certain types of yarmulkes is that they wear them as a sign of affiliation. I'm a part of this group. I'm making a statement that I'm not only am I Orthodox, but I'm this type of Orthodox. Right? They're making that statement. So we have a number of things where our world, and it's not just us, everybody does it. Not just Orthodox Jews. Everywhere you go, people wear shirts with the logos on it. That's what they're doing. Like why if you go to, for instance, you go to a designer, let's say you go to Gucci. Gucci could have a shirt made by Gucci, and it'll be $300. Right? If Gucci makes a shirt made by Gucci and they put their logo on it, it'll be $400. Why is it more? Because people want to wear the logo. They want the logo because they're identifying and saying I have good taste. I can purchase luxury items. I can purchase designer clothes. I'm affiliated with this world. That's what they're making a statement. Otherwise, why would you buy the same shirt by the same designer and pay more for it with their logo on it when you can buy it without their logo? And it's the same thing, or the logo could be much more discreet. And you find that the larger the logo and the more prominent the logo is on designer goods, the more it sells. Because people want to show that they're identifying, and that's what happens here. So in our own lives, we have to understand that when we dress, we act, we do certain things, we very often show not only ourselves, our inner selves, but also our affiliation. Who are we? Right? It's easy to be able to recognize people very often when you go to Israel. Recognize where they come from, just how they dress. You can see they come from America, North America, they come from South America, they come from Russia. You can often see this, how people dress, because they're affiliating, they might not even be conscious of it. So we have to understand that when we also do that, and that we should make sure that when we affiliate, that we're doing it with a good thing, a positive thing. Not something that teaches, for instance, morality not like us, teaches theology not like us, makes statements, of flaunting wealth, for instance, or of promiscuity or immorality. Whatever it is, we have to make sure that when we show signs of our affiliating, that those affiliations are still affiliations that are within our belief system, that are part of Judaism. Right? They're part of what we stand for, and then there's nothing wrong with it. So here the Kohanim are being warned, and we have the same a mitzvah as well, similar to this in another place in the Torah, where it tells us also you can't do certain things. The only reason is because the non-Jewish religions do these things. Not non-Jews. Non-Jews in themselves. Nothing wrong with a non-Jew. They're a human being. They have to be given respect and so forth. But if they're idol, let's say they practice idol worship, and all of the people who practice this idol worship wear green shirts, we shouldn't wear green shirts because we don't want to affiliate with that idea. And that's part of what it says.
Can I ask you, when in mourning there's a cut either on a shirt or
on clothing, right?
Clothing. What does that mean? Because
we have an idea that when a person mourns, that a sign of anguish is that they'll tear their clothes. Like they'll be so upset that they'll just tear a piece of clothing. So it became a symbol of mourning, and therefore it's part of the mitzvah of mourning is to tear a piece of your clothing and to wear that clothing during the mourning period, the week of mourning. That's where it comes from. And it's also a sign, right? Mm-hmm. It's a sign that a person's mourning. So that goes on here. Now, we get into this thing about who a Kohen can marry. There's a couple of things about a Kohen that seems to be a bit odd. One is we learn that a Kohen has to be physically perfect. Right? He can't. It'll tell us shortly in the next page or so that a Kohen cannot have certain physical blemishes. If he does, he can't serve as a Kohen. He can't work in the temple as a Kohen. And most of these blemishes are things that he had no control over. It's not like he did something wrong, and therefore he has the blemish. So too, when he gets married, he's only allowed to marry certain types of women, right? And let's say this woman that he wants to marry, she was a convert. She converted. Nothing wrong with a convert. Very often they're very special people, but he can't marry one. A divorced woman, right? Okay, it used to be when I was a kid, a divorced woman, they were so rare that they had a connotation that that as a divorced woman, it was her problem. That's how it used to be. It wasn't right, but that's how I remember. I was a child, but I can remember, hearing on the news and the media and on the television how they spoke about them. But as time went on, right, we realized that that's not what a divorced person is. But there was such an idea, and here a Kohen can't marry a divorced woman. Why not? Maybe a divorced woman, she's divorced because her husband became insane. Or maybe she got divorced, and it was a good thing that she got divorced. She's married to this man, and he stopped being observant. Or they had an agreement they were going to move to Israel, and he changes his mind. Right? There's nothing wrong with her. So why can't a Kohen do that? So these two things, where a Kohen can't serve as a Kohen if he has a physical blemish, and a Kohen is not allowed to marry certain people who we would say there's nothing wrong with these people. So why is there such a rule? So I think we can understand it. Well, I guess one way would be, it's probably clearer in the U.S. than it is here. But if you would go into the United States and you go to the meeting of the Senate, U.S. Senate, right, a senator is usually a man in his 50s. Right? They could be older, they could be a little younger, but you don't have too many 30-year-old senators, and you certainly don't have too many 90-year-old senators. Right? They're usually 40, 50, they're around there. But you'll notice that the senators, as almost any politician, they look younger than they are. They do. Right? They have hair, they look athletic. Now, I would presume a senator doesn't have a lot of time to go to the gym and to play football. And it's a genetic thing. Right? If you have hair, you don't have hair. But there's something about them that they look young. Why is that? They know that if they look like they're in shape and they look young, people like that. They realize it, just like we realize it. We might realize it and not talk about it, but they realize it, and they do something about it. Anyone who's in the public eye, you be a rabbi or anybody, if the way you look, the way you dress, there's certain civility about how you act, your sophistication is very important. More so important than with the average person, because somebody wants to say, my senator, right, this is my senator, you want to be proud of how he looks. My rabbi, you want to be proud of how he looks. Even though how he looks might be the most insignificant part of who that person is, you want to have that certain pride. Right? With a Kohen represents, right, the Gemara has an argument. Does the Kohen represent us to God or God to us? He's not a middleman. He's a facilitator. He does certain things on our behalf, but we don't have such a thing as a middleman. But he facilitates for us to do certain things in our relationship with Hashem, like offering sacrifices. So a Kohen to us is, when you go to the temple, it's like he is the one who's either representing you, so to speak, to God through the actions, or to you, he represents God to us, to so to speak. And therefore, the way he looks is very important. It's not necessarily correct. It's a fact. Human beings judge people by how they look. And to some extent, it's not bad. Right? Overdoing it is bad, and judging people by how they look, and therefore, you have preconceived stereotypes. That's bad, but in general, it's not always bad. And the average person will do this, just like I said, with a senator or a rabbi or some type of a leader. People look at how they look. You notice, how successful, like presidents and prime ministers who are handsome. Why is it they do so well? It plays a role. Right? John Kennedy, Obama, they're handsome men. It makes a difference. Their careers are affected by it, right? Because they're handsome. Justin Trudeau is a handsome man. He's jumping right up, right, very quickly. Is he a person who should be prime minister or not? I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody knows yet. But that he got to this point, certainly his looks, his youth, his family name, all play a role. Before you even ask him, what do you believe about something, he's already got one step ahead, right? So it's the same thing with the Kohen. Look, when we look at a Kohen, we want our Kohen, right or wrong, to look perfect, to look right. Because to us, this is the temple. This is the temple. He's representing God. God is perfect. So how can my Kohen have one leg, or have one arm longer than the other? It can't be. So not that there's anything wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a person having a physical defect. But the Torah is telling us, let's face facts. Human beings, no matter what culture you are, have a certain feeling that certain people need to be a little bit better than others as far as how they look, how they act, how they present themselves. A Kohen's one. And that's exactly why he can't marry a divorced woman. Not because there's anything wrong with a divorced woman, any more than a divorced man. It could be the other person's fault. It could have been a mitzvah for them to get divorced. It could have been a million reasons where she did absolutely nothing wrong, and she's a wonderful, lovely woman who was married to the wrong guy, right? So, but there's always been this sort of smell about it, so to speak. There's something there throughout history. We saw it more so when I was a kid, but the commentators tell us that this was for thousands of years. People had that feeling. Therefore, with a Kohen who has to present himself as perfection, would not be allowed to marry such a person. Not because there's anything wrong with them and of themselves, but because of what they represent. And that's what it seems to say. Because on the same hand, this teaches us that we have to act in the opposite way. In other words, the Torah is telling us this is a reality. Human beings think this way. The Torah is not telling us that it's good that we think this way. The Torah is telling us that it's a fact. We judge people by how they look. Now, hopefully, we're intelligent enough and we're sensitive enough to get past it. But there's no question, the moment you meet someone, that's all you know, is how they look. So if they're attractive and they look good and there's nothing about them that's negative, when you see them, you're drawn to go further, to talk further, to spend time with them. If they're not, you push away. But hopefully you'll go past it and get to know them. And that's the Torah is telling us, by virtue of the fact that it's only in these instances where you have this, is the Torah is telling you that, yes, it's a fact of the human condition, but it's not a way we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to judge people by such things. You don't judge a woman because she's divorced, and therefore you think she's less. You don't judge a person because he's got one leg longer than another, or he walks with a limp, or he has one eyebrow. Whatever it is, we don't judge people in such a way. We judge people for who they are within themselves, their actions, their beliefs, right? The real entity of that personality of that person, not the outer look of that person. So while it tells you in this case, it sort of settles and understands human beings have this, it also, by virtue of telling you this, it's telling you that it's not the way it wants you to be. That's the next point. Right, if you look on the next page, on 674 and 675, it talks about all the blemishes that a Kohen would have, where he's not allowed to serve. So then the Torah doesn't only talk about Kohanim here. It talks about, it goes into other areas, right? Goes about various sacrifices and holidays. And so let's take a look at the holidays on 682 and 683. It's a bit ahead. But here is a section that we read when we read various Musaf parts of them. Some of the special readings for holidays is found in this section, beginning here, the festivals. So let's understand first what a festival is, what a holiday is in Jewish law. A holiday is different than Shabbos. They have similar rules, and they have some rules that are different than Shabbos, but you dress up for both. You can't drive for both, right? You have a lot of similarities. Holidays are similar like that. Each holiday has something special. Pesach has its own things. Sukkot has its own things, right? They all have their own things. But one of the main differences that I want to get at is that a holiday is something that we have an effect on. And I'll explain what that means. While Shabbos, we don't. If you notice that when the Torah talks about someone who keeps Shabbos as somebody who guards it, Shomer Shabbos, they guard Shabbos. Someone who breaks Shabbos is called someone who's Mechalel Shabbos. That doesn't mean to break Shabbos. That means that they take the holiness out of it. It means it becomes secular. Right? It becomes regular. It's no longer holy. With a holiday, it doesn't use those expressions. And the difference is that Shabbos, we are taught, is a gift that God gave us. In other words, God had this idea that the seventh day of creation, He rested. That is to say, everything was finished. It's now at a point where where we have to say, today is the seventh day. It's perfect. This is the way it is, and we're going to live with it. We're not going to try to change things. So we call that Shabbos. Hashem gave that to us as a gift. We didn't do anything to deserve it. Holidays, on the other hand, we play a role. We played a role in Passover. We played a role in Sukkot. And we do play a role in it otherwise. For instance, when it's time for a holiday is based on the date that the Jewish court, the Beis Din, decides is the first day of the month. When the court decides today is the first day of the month, it's telling you what day the holiday will be, because it's the 15th day of the month. So if it says tomorrow is the first day, then 2 weeks from tomorrow plus a day will be the holiday. If it says today is, then it'll be 2 weeks plus a day from today, rather than from tomorrow. And you can take Passover, which it might start on a Tuesday night. If the court says no, we're starting the first day of the month a day later, so now it's going to start on Wednesday night. So human beings have a certain amount of control over the holidays. We don't have any control over Shabbos. It's the seventh day, like it or not. It comes, it's always there. And that's an important distinction between the two. And that's why, if you look at the Kiddush is, it says, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos, that we say this idea that Hashem makes holy the Sabbath. When we say it for holidays, we say this in the prayers, it says, Hashem is Mekadesh Yisrael V'Hazmanim. He makes holy the Jewish people and the times meaning the holidays. But you'll notice that it says the Jewish people first, because Hashem makes holy the Jewish people make holy the times. But when it comes to Shabbos is we don't establish anything for that. That's a gift that Hashem gives us. So when you're about to pray, and Shabbos and a holiday fall out in the same day, so you would say Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos Yisrael V'Hazmanim. It says God made holy Shabbos and the Jewish people and the holidays. So what does it say in that order? Because Shabbos comes first, because God made holy Shabbos, period. Then He made holy the Jewish people, and the Jewish people made holy the holidays. We don't make Shabbos holy. Shabbos is a gift. So that's one significant difference. When we went through Pesach not that long ago, and if you look here, beginning in the 4th verse, it talks about Pesach, and then it goes to the laws of the Omer, which we're in now, what we call Sfiras HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, which is 7 weeks. Now, if you look beginning on 684 and 685, it starts to talk about the holiday of Shavuos, which is our next holiday. And it says, you shall count for yourself from the morrow of the rest day, from the day when you bring the Omer of the waving. 7 weeks shall they be complete. Until the morrow of the 7th week you shall count. Right? 50 days. And you shall offer a new meal offering to Hashem. And then it tells you about the sacrifice. That's the holiday of Shavuos. It doesn't say Shavuos anywhere. Right? It just says a holiday. It tells you a certain sacrifice you have to offer, but there's nowhere does it say, this is, this is, what do you call it? This is the holiday the Torah was given. Doesn't say it. This is the holiday that we all gather around the mountain. We stay up all night. We eat cheesecake. Doesn't say anything about it. It says that, in fact, Shavuos is sort of like an afterthought to Sfiras Omer. You count 49 days, and then the next day is Shavuos. But it doesn't even say that. It says the next day is a holiday. And you offer a certain sacrifice. So why not? Why isn't Shavuos not mentioned here? Not only that, why don't we, we have another day that we celebrate like Shavuos, which is Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah, we celebrate the Torah. Right? Why aren't we doing it then? Why aren't we doing that on Shavuos? Why aren't we celebrating the Torah in October? We should celebrate it now, when we got the Torah. So I think the commentaries explain the following. The first thing, the holiday of Shavuos commemorates 2 ideas. And I'll explain it to you in let's say, an idea of a gift. There are 2 types of gifts in the world. There are gifts with intrinsic value, and there are gifts that only have value really because of who gave it to you. Right? For instance, intrinsic value, if somebody gives you a gold watch, that watch is worth $10,000, $15,000, whatever. It's intrinsically expensive, so you'll treat that watch with care, right? You'll appreciate it. You'll really like that watch, and you'll treat it in a very special way. because it's worth a lot, right? However, if instead of that you happen to, let's say, be going to you go into the U.S. and you get invited to go to see the president, and he allows you to go on Air Force One and his own plane. So you go on the president's plane. When you get off the plane, the Secret Service give men a pair of cufflinks and give women a pin that has the insignia of the president, and it says Air Force One on it. It probably costs $1.50. Right? They're not worth a lot of money. They're not real gold. They look like gold, right? But you cherish those. Why? They're not worth anything, but the person who gave it to you, the President of the United States gave it to you, that has significance. It's like a medal, right? You go to the Army, you do something amazing, they give you a medal. What's the medal cost? $1? But you save that medal the rest of your life because you got it from an important person for an important reason. So there's two different types of gifts. One where the value of the gift is a lot, so you cherish it, and one is because of how you got it, and you cherish it, right? So the Torah in of itself is both. The Torah has an intrinsic value. It's worth an enormous amount. It's the only book that God wrote. He gave it to us. It's the book that gives us the ability to have a life. So that's worth a lot. But not only that, but who gave it to us? God. Right? The President of the United States might be a special guy, but God is even more. God gave it to us. So now, not only do we celebrate the fact that we receive something that has an intrinsic value of enormous amount, but we also received it from an entity called God, which is greater than anything else. So here, this gift is extraordinary. On that basis, we celebrate it in two different ways. On Shavuos itself, we celebrate the fact that God gave us the Torah. That's what we're doing. God gave it to us. We're not celebrating the Torah itself, because we haven't experienced it. We don't know anything about it. He just gave it to us that day. On Simchas Torah, later on, we've gone through reading the Torah. We've lived a life, right, with Torah. There we celebrate what the Torah is. We celebrate the worth of the Torah, like the gold watch. On Shavuos, we celebrate that God gave it to us, because God, that's an enormous thing. It's like the president giving you cufflinks. But the Torah's worth, that's celebrated on Simchas Torah. So we have those two times to celebrate, because there's two different things we're celebrating. It doesn't say the holiday of Shavuos is when the Torah was given, right, in this section. And this really has, because the basis of the receiving of the Torah was not a one-time thing. Like we would celebrate Torah, that we got the Torah that day. We physically received the Torah then, but we have the understanding that every year on Shavuos, we receive the Torah. I receive the Torah on Shavuos every year. Right? Every one of you receive the Torah on Shavuos every year. That is to say that Hashem basically comes to us and he gives us our ability to learn, to understand, and to grow from Torah. And because he does that for us on this day, we celebrate it. So we don't say that this day is specifically a great day in and of itself. It's a great day because of that Hashem gave us the Torah, and we ourselves receive that every year. We have that relationship with Hashem on this time every year. The reason that we actually only refer to Torah, to the Shavuos, as the 50th day from the 49 days, is we have to also understand the historic value. Historically, what would happen? The Jews left Egypt. They said that if the Jews hadn't left Egypt at the moment that they did, they would have totally assimilated. There would have been no one to take out of Egypt. Right? The Jews would have been gone. So Hashem took us out. But that means that we weren't in a great place. We weren't at the highest level of our history. We were at the lowest possible level. Really, in Kabbalistic terms, there are 49 spiritual levels that are in this world. We were on the lowest possible level. If we had gone below that, we wouldn't have existed. So we had to be able to go from the lowest possible level to the highest possible level in order to receive the Torah. From the day we left Egypt to the day we received the Torah was 50 days. So you have 49 days out of those 50 to raise our level from the lowest to the highest, so that on the 50th day we're on the highest. Right? So that's what Sfiras HaOmer is. That each day, we count the day, making each day significant. Each day is important in our spiritual growth, so that today I am spiritually on a higher plane than I was yesterday, and tomorrow I will be again, so that when I hit the 49th day, the end of these 7 weeks, I'll be prepared to take the Torah. I'll be on the level where I can accept the Torah. You know, it's like a person, you know, when they have, when you know, a person goes in for certain medical procedures, they'll tell that person, you know, you have to lose weight before you do it. So you say, well, why do you have to lose weight before you do a medical procedure? It's surgery. What's it got to do with it? And the answer is that your body has to be prepared. That if your body is under so much stress when you have the surgery, you might not get out of the surgery. But there are ways to help yourself to increase your chances that you'll be fine, which is you do the most you can to prepare your body so that when they do the surgery, your body will heal easier, you'll recuperate quicker, and you'll come out of it better. So they'll tell you have to do certain things before the surgery, right? If you don't do those things, the chances of success are less. It's the same thing with us. We left Egypt. We were not prepared to receive the Torah. If Hashem had given us the Torah, it would have spiritually killed us. It would have been too intense, too much all at once. But because we worked on ourselves every day and built ourselves up to the end of these 7 weeks, we now can receive the Torah. So this period of going from Pesach to Shavuos is probably, in the eyes of humanity, more important than the actual day of Shavuos. Even though Shavuos is when we got the Torah and the whole world was created for that purpose, we wouldn't have been able to receive the Torah if we hadn't worked on ourselves every day. And therefore, the holiday period known as Sfiras Omer is extremely important for us because we need to use this time in order to raise ourselves up, and every day to be on that level, closer and closer to where we should be. Now, also, let's go back to that again. When we're talking about Shavuos, you have an interesting thing. It goes into this whole section of Shavuos and the sacrifice, and then it starts talking about when you reap the harvest of your land. On the next page, on 687, it stops talking about the holidays. It goes into talking about working on your field and giving poor people some of your food. And then it goes back to the holidays again. It talks about Rosh Hashanah. It goes Shavuos. Then it talks about offering like charity to the poor from your farm, and then it talks about Rosh Hashanah. Now, what's that doing in there? Like, what is this whole section of these 6 lines here about charity doing in the middle of a section dealing with holidays? It's like Hashem didn't have a place to stick it, so He stuck it here. And why is it here? So the commentaries tell us that the reason is because is that for a person. It needs to understand one very, very important point. There are certain parts of the Torah that we receive that everybody understands that because we got the Torah, that's how we know it. Kosher. If I could tell you have to keep kosher, but if you don't have the Torah, you don't know what kosher is. What's kosher? What's not kosher? How do you make kosher? How do you use the done? What does it mean? Right? It's not logical. It's something the Torah had to tell you. But if you want to tell me helping the poor is logical, now, I don't need the Torah to tell me that if there's a poor person and he's hungry, I should give him food. Right? I don't need the Torah to say that. So the idea being is that if the Torah if how we see this is that as we build ourselves up each day, right, and we understand that the Torah is a book that's purpose is to teach us everything, not just teaching us things that we wouldn't know otherwise. So therefore, the Torah, it tells you receive the Torah, and then it tells you the laws of charity. Why? Because you're going to say that the laws of charity are logical. I don't need the Torah to tell me. The Torah is telling us no, it's not logical. Things that appear to be logical to us really aren't. The Torah defines them. For instance, we all know you can't murder. Now, the Torah says don't murder. Do you need the Torah to tell you not to murder? Most people say no. I would know I shouldn't murder. Why shouldn't I murder? Because I don't want to be murdered. So I won't murder, so nobody will murder me. Right? All right, so tell me, what is murder? Well, certainly taking a gun and shooting somebody, that's murder. How about abortion? Is that murder? How about assisted suicide? Is it murder? How about heart transplants? Is that murder? And I'm not answering the question. I'm asking. How do we know the answer to those questions? In one society, they'll tell you abortion's okay. Another society, they'll say no. One society will tell you that that if somebody is in great pain and they won't get better, it's better that you should do, like euthanasia. Right? You should allow them to die or kill them so they shouldn't suffer, because they're not going to get better. Then they're only suffering. Other society says, no, you can't do that. How do we know the answer to these questions? The Torah has to tell you the definition of what it means to murder. It's not so simple. Right? It's the same thing with charity. What's the definition of charity? How do you know you have to give charity? Who should get charity? How much charity? How do you do it? All of these are things that we think we know, but we don't. The Torah teaches us this. So that's why it's put in. You have the receiving of the Torah, the laws of charity, and then Rosh Hashanah. Because it's telling you that the laws of charity are as much necessary to learn from the Torah as the laws of kosher or anything else. Because everything that we do in this world, the definition of morality, the definition of ethics, all comes from the Torah. Nothing is abstract. Like we think somebody comes or tries to kill you. So can you stop them? Can you kill them to stop them? Like self-defense. Now, it's self-defense. Well, how do you know that because someone's trying to kill you, you can now kill them? Maybe you just did what they were going to do to you. How do you know it's allowed? How do we know that you're allowed to defend yourself? Where do we get that idea? And what's the definition of defending yourself? If somebody comes to slap your face, can you kill them? Right? If somebody comes to kill you, can you only slap their face? How do we know? That's the point here. That's why the Torah tells us this in this spot, to let us know. It's also interesting, in the same place where it talks about giving sacrifices, giving the charity, it says that you should allow the poor person to go and take the charity, take the food from your field. You have certain parts of the field that are left for the poor. Right? And it's telling you there that you can't help them. You can't go and help them take that. So you imagine you get this older woman coming, and she's poor, and she needs to take food. Right? And you're a young guy in his 30s. You have a field. You want to. She's coming. Wouldn't it be good to help her? Go and help her get the food. Say, listen, you just stay here. Let me go get the food for you. I'll collect it for you. Torah says you can't do it. Well, why not? It seems like the right thing to do. So the answer is the Torah is telling you that the dignity of the poor person is extremely important. And while we might think that all I'm doing is helping them, what I am also doing is I am standing in front of them and saying, I'm giving you this food. It's from my field. I will help you with it, because not only do you need to take charity, you need help taking charity. Right? And that takes away from the dignity of the person. We need to remember the dignity of the person taking charity, or any person, but even such a person. And therefore, we don't give them the food. They're allowed to come and take it. Not only that, but it also teaches us that it's not our food. When Hashem gives us a field, and there's 100 bushels of apples in that field, a certain amount of those bushels have to go to the poor. You're not giving it to the poor. Hashem's giving it to the poor. He's just giving it to you to do it. You're physically doing it, but Hashem only gave it to you for them. That it says that if we're supposed to give 10% of our money to charity, so if your salary is $100,000 a year, your real salary is $90,000. And Hashem just gave you $10,000 to give to somebody else. You're his messenger to give that to the poor. It's the same thing here. You are not giving that. You're not the big shot who should be honored because you gave that. The person who collects it realizes it's coming from God. That's why you shouldn't help them, because you shouldn't give the impression that it's coming from you. That's another answer that they give as to why it says it in there.
But there's also another reason, that if you went and got the food for them, you might be tempted to give them poor quality, or not give them the very best that you had in that piece of pie.
Maybe, but even if you are prepared to give them the best, you still can't give it to them. Right? So it's telling you that's a true fact, but it could be even more. We then, if you notice that we get to 692 and 693, we have a whole change. We now talk about the case of capital punishment. It says, Ben Isha Yisraelis, you have a son of a Jewish woman. And it says, Vohu ben Ish Mitzri, and his father is Egyptian. Right? And he's living with the Jews. And there was a fight with this person. And the son of the Israelite woman and an Israel man. Right? A Jewish man and this guy got into a fight. The son of the Israelite woman, whose father wasn't Jewish, said the name of God and cursed the other man. right? So the Jews hear him do this, curse God, right? And they grab him and they bring him to Moshe and they say, what do you do with a guy who uses the name of God in vain in such a way, who uses the name of God to curse? So, because they didn't know, it never happened before. So Moshe goes and he says, God says such a person has to be killed. Right? It's capital punishment. You can't allow a person to do that, to do such a thing. In this, of course, in the specific manner that the Torah tells us. So if you see the section that says, Moshe says you should take the blasphemer to outside the camp, and everyone who heard it should be a part of this, and then he would be stoned. Then suddenly this story ends, and it says next, and a man, if he strikes mortally any human life, he should put to death. He starts talking about the laws of murder. And a man who hits another person or an animal, what happens and what goes on in it. And with an animal, you have to pay the owner back, and with a human, you have to pay with your life in many cases, right? And then the last line in the parsha is, and Moshe spoke to the children of Israel, and they took the blasphemer to the outside of the camp, and they stoned him to death. So you imagine, here's the story. The guy goes and he says the name of God in vain. He curses God. They bring him to Moshe. Moshe says he has to be killed. It's like now a commercial comes in. It's like in the middle of the TV show, right? They bring him to Moshe, and he says he has to be killed. So of course the next thing that should happen is he gets killed. Nope. Now we have a commercial break, and it comes in and tells you the laws of murder, right? And then it comes back and they kill him. So what is this in the middle? The laws of murder. What does it tell? Why are you getting the laws of murder? The guy didn't murder anybody. Why is it there? So the answer is that the Torah wants us to understand that there are times when capital punishment is required. It's extremely, extremely rare that in Judaism you ever had it. Right? You see among the early rabbinic authorities, they say once in 70 years, once in 70 years that they committed capital punishment, that was a bloody court. And Rabbi Akiva says, in my life, you will never hear of such a thing. You'll never have capital punishment. I will always find a way that we'll never do it. So it's extremely rare. But here we have a case of capital punishment. And then the Torah tells us about murder, and then it goes back and does it. The answer to this is that the Torah puts the laws of murder in there to tell us, you're going to kill somebody, but don't think that this is a simple thing. Human life is extremely important. If you kill a human being, it's a horrible thing. There are times when it's necessary. But don't ever consider human life cheap. You always have to be sensitive to the significance and importance of human life. And that's why it sticks in the middle of this story, the laws of what happens when you take a human life. Because they're about to take a human life. And we don't want you to become bloodthirsty. We don't want you to be violent. You have to do it sometimes. You have to do it, right? It's like, I don't quote Golda Meir that often, but Golda Meir once said that in the future, right, when all of the story of the Arab-Israeli fighting is judged, she said, we won't judge the Arabs for the fact that they killed our children, but we will certainly judge them because they forced us to kill their children. And that idea, right, is what this is saying, that human life is extremely important. There are times when you have to take a life, but don't treat it lightly, even if you have to. And that's why the Torah says it in that way. Another commentary, just in another vein, tells us that this shows you the importance of human language. When a person curses God, right, and he's going to be killed, before they kill him, you have the whole thing about murder. Because in a certain sense, your words can murder someone. That if you insult someone, you humiliate someone, you embarrass them publicly, you may as well have killed them. And we see it in the newspaper. We just had cases like this in the newspaper, right? We had cases in the paper just like this, where this girl, right, was being hounded on the internet and being bullied, and they said these terrible things about her, and she killed herself. Well, why would someone kill themselves for such a thing? The reason is because they're so humiliated and so embarrassed, they don't see a way that they could have a normal life. So they're prepared to do it. I'm not saying that it's right. It's not right. It's sad. But why would they do that? If somebody comes and steals your favorite toy or steals your favorite object, you're not going to kill yourself, right? So why is this? Because embarrassment And humiliation is an enormously painful thing. And this person used words in such a way, and he's going to be killed for it. But we have to realize that his words themselves were like murder. The words themselves could do the same thing. So one needs to take that into consideration. We're prepared to take a human life if we have to. But why would we take a human life because someone cursed God? Because he used words to kill, and that we can't allow either. And even if it's only, and not literally killing, but it's metaphorically killing, you go to that person who's been humiliated, and they would rather be dead. So that's what the Torah is telling us here. So that concludes it for now, but that Parshas Emor.